everybody. I think he has actually overstated my resume a bit. I'm a student. I'm not an expert at anything, and I'm likely to be a student for the next till I'm 70 or so. After which probably I'll become senile. I will just start with a brief thing on structural steel, because I think the previous speakers have also done that a bit, and I will put in a little bit of thought on that, my thoughts on that. When I started my career around 18 years back, I didn't like doing structural steel because, first of all, the sections available was only limited to Indian standard angles, beams, and so on. And whatever you try to do, the first thing people tell you is it cannot be done that way, or it will be difficult to do, so try something else. But in the last 6-7 years, things have changed a lot. Like all this. First of all, sections. What Jindal has done with the British sections, you've got a lot of range of section, weights for a single depth of section and so on. You got 250 grade, 350 grade, high strength. Even I think 2062, IS 2062 has gone up to I think 650 MPa yield strength. So things are changing, and there's a lot of options. And the people talked about Eversendai, Jindal, and many of the people who have had vast experience abroad in erecting massive structures in steel have come into the country, and they are able to give solutions by thinking out of the box, which we are not used to in India in structural steel. So I have worked with a number of the companies which were mentioned: Eversendai, Jindal, Geodesic, and Yongnam, and so on. Fabrication capabilities have also been ramped up in most of these companies. And also on the other side, from the design and contracting standpoint, specifications and specification standards have also increased. And like my predecessor was just speaking about difficulties in splitting of work and responsibility, liabilities, and so on. So that has also improved. I think in Mumbai airport, in this project, we went through a number of the issues the gentleman was mentioning, and we have managed to resolve most of the complications that arose between separate subcontractors and so on. So things are improving. That's why I actually it has become my favorite material for design now. Coming to the airport thing. This has basically consumed 7 years of my life, actually, this project. So, and it was very challenging because it's in the middle of the most busy city in India, and the busiest part of the city and the busiest airport. And we replaced the complete airport, all the existing buildings, the Terminal 1 side, the domestic terminals. Also, we built Terminal 1C, the new ATC tower. And the entire airside, the aprons, it's a massive job. But the most challenging was the Terminal 2. It is inaugurated, it's operational, but even today it's challenging me because I have to condense this big thing in 20 minutes. So that's continuing, challenges are continuing. So yeah, the picture here, this is how it looks like from the air. It's just a rendering, but the actual thing looks very much like that. And you have the from the main highway, you come in like this, ramp onto the 4th floor, and then go out like that. So this is the building, and as you can see, there is a structure, a building structure, and there are 2 distinct sets of roofs on the building. So just to give it a little more clarity. So the building is RCC structure on pile foundations. The column grids are range from 9 by 11 to 9 by 17 from at the bottom, and the column, some columns, alternate columns disappear as you go up. So at the top, you will get something like 18 by 17 meters also, the column grid. But there is nothing special about the low roof because the members are of normal spans like 17 meter, 18 meter maximum. The last set of columns which terminate at the roof from the last RCC floor, that is composite, so that you transition from an RCC to a steel structure properly. There is just around 15 meters above the low roof, there is a kind of floating kind of roof, which I am calling the head house roof. And this is what I'm going to go into a little more detail now. So just before I get into the head house, I'll just give you an idea how the building, RCC building structure looks like below. So basically, there are 16 buildings separated by clear expansion joints. The foundations are the common. There are 16 buildings. For the purpose of analysis, this is combined into a single building along with the big roof that I showed you. These are the dimensions of the building. Basically, when you talk about large, this is really large. This is a kilometer in length. So, and we talk about 4 million square feet, 5 million square feet easily when we talk about vertical structures, but try doing a flat structure and you will understand what I'm saying when I say it's a challenge. So this is the head house roof is a single structure, monolithic, I would say. Steel cannot be monolithic, but it doesn't have expansion joints. It covers roughly this 8 numbers of buildings. And so this is what it looks like presently. This is rendering, but you will see something like this when you see in Google Map also. There are 30 columns holding the structure up. This is around I think 68,000 square meter area and plan. And these are roughly the dimensions. So this roof alone consumed around 16,000 tons of steel, roughly. There are many, big glass skylights to allow in natural light into the building. There are around 280 square meters each of them. And then there are smaller skylights which are around 244 numbers each, sitting on top. And one more thing I would like to add is my predecessors were talking about erecting cantilevers, large cantilevers, and so on. I would say this is cantilever with a capital C. This is roughly, I would say, 37 meters cantilever, and it's all the entire perimeter is cantilevered out from the columns. The perimeter columns, roughly that will be around 45 meters. So I have a kilometer of cantilevers of around 35 to 40 meters. So if I'll just show you a section through that, and then I'll show you a photograph taken from beneath the roof there. So this is what the first section looks like when you cut through the mega column. We call this mega column because it is really mega. The diameter is 2.7 meters, and it's a composite structure. The steel, there is a steel cruciform steel shape inside, which is around 2.3 meter in dimension. And the entire column is basically cantilevered from the foundation for a height of around 41 meters. Here, the skylight, the large skylights, I was just telling you, will be on top here, and then the smaller skylights will be all this. There are 4 levels of the structure, the RCC structure below, and there are a lot of underground structures, around 20,000 square meters of underground structures. This column is connected to, these columns are connected to the RCC structure at the bottommost level. Otherwise, it is not connected to the building. So this is a photo after completion that we took from inside, standing, I would say, somewhere here and looking up. So this is what it looks like. This is another unique structure, what we term as the cable wall. It's an unidirectional cable system, and these columns do not support the cantilever. They are not connected at the top. There is a clear gap. This is another presentation. I will not get into that now. Sorry, it will be. So this is the structural design is a joint effort of SOM, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, and L&T EDRC. The RCC structure was completely done from here, but the steel structure, because SOM wanted to have a close coordination between architecture, which they were responsible for, and the shape of the steel structure, they did the initial preliminary design and went to a lot of, further on, when they gave this to us, it was a standalone roof with on columns and on fixed foundation. So what we had done was we combined it with the RCC structure below when it came to L&T, and working along with SOM, we did. When we combined the RCC building with the steel structure of the roof, what happened was it improved the behavior of both the RCC structure and the steel structure also. The deformations of the, I hope some of you are designers and will understand what I'm saying, but the deformations of the building, RCC building, reduced a lot because of its connectivity with the big columns, and also the deformations of the roof also reduced, thereby reducing forces and sizes of sections and so on. So there was quite a lot of savings that we had, but anyway, that is not the point of the. But one thing is, like when you use structural steel and concrete together in a constructive way, I think you can. I don't think structural steel can only be used for a building. I think you have to mix with concrete somewhere or the other. Foundations cannot be. So you have to have a balance of the two, I think, for to use material properly. Now, anyway, I'll skip this part. It's not that important. So just to sum up the salient features, I hope you can see this. It's a bit too small, I think. It is the single largest roof in Asia, at least. I don't know about the world, without expansion joints. And the design is done in such a way that all the parts are modular, so that you have repetitions of fabrication and erection components. The design of the roof has a lot of redundancy. Redundancy in the sense that we are talking about long span structures and cantilevers, huge cantilevers. So how do you incorporate redundancy of load parts when you design cantilevers? That was one of the challenges. I'll just go into detail in the next slide. A lot of analysis and design effort went into the design of this roof. We had done a lot of local FEM analysis with the various nodes, massive nodes. Some of the members connected to the nodes has forces of the tune of 2,000 tons. 2,000 tons and so on. So you have to be very sure that the wales or the bolts that are there will take it in any condition, whether it's seismic. So you have to be very sure. We are talking about very large forces here. There was a very detailed wind tunnel analysis of the building that was done by RWDI in Canada, and these forces were used in the design of the roof. In lieu of the forces given in the Indian code. It's completely soap welded and side bolted structure. High strength friction grip bolts were used. Major butt welds were tested with radiographic testing method because we wanted to have more reliability of the butt welds, as these were carrying very large forces. The talking point about the roof eventually came to how it was erected, and this is where the expertise of Yongnam and Geodesic came into picture, the two subcontractors who worked on the job. I have a different set of slides for that. If I have time, I'll just go through that. But just the structural framing, it's just a diagrid, kind of a diagrid. You have north, south, east, west, as well as 45-degree trusses in both directions. So what it does is it creates a very rigid in-plane diaphragm kind of effect. So it is very rigid in its own plane, and the purlins are also aligned to the center line of purlins, or the top of the purlins are aligned to the top of the trusses, so as to get extra rigidity of the local pockets. The purlins are not sitting on the structure, the main truss. They are aligned to the main truss top. The tops are aligned. So this is one item, this edge truss, what you see there. That is what I am talking about when I say redundancy. So what it does is basically this, we have a very stiff continuous truss at the perimeter. So if you see any cantilever point, and free point of the cantilever, you will notice that there are multiple trusses picking up that point. It is not just one truss. And since the trusses, the cantilever trusses are all of different spans, the deflections also are different. So you need to have a very rigid member at the end to normalize all these different deformations, so that you can have a nice looking perimeter. And when in the event that some of this one cantilever has been fabricated or installed slightly wrongly or slightly weaker, in a weaker manner, the edge truss picks the forces up and transfers it to the other cantilevers. So that is how we achieve redundancy in the cantilever system. So just a simple framing will look something like that. This is the purlin system. The reason why we went like this and like that is to have rigidity in both directions for the purlin system. This is the edge truss again. This is how it picks the edges of the various cantilever trusses up. And we have something called a pod, which is the part of the structure which rests on the top of the big column. Now, for the design of the mega column, the composite section, a lot of this is not done based on Gödel methods. We went through a lot of non-linear as well as linear analysis to get the PM diagram, that is your axial force versus bending moment capacity curves, was drawn, custom drawn, I would say, for the section. This is a custom drawn figure. What we basically did was the composite structure was discretized with reinforcement steel concrete with non-linear properties. For the steel, we assumed an elastic, perfectly plastic material. So it goes like this and goes like this, stress strain curve. And for the concrete, we took the normal concrete stress strain curve from the books. And what we did was the capacity of the column in the diagonal direction, which is the weakest axis of the column, as you can see, was found out by putting axial load, constant axial load, and varying deformation to the FEM model. Thereby, at one point, what happens is suddenly it starts either yielding or crushing at the compression side. So that is the point where we note the deformation value and work out the bending moment capacity. So thereby, we drew all these curves, and what we did was we superimposed the analysis forces in the curve. This is how you do it with SP16 and RCC, but this is how we did in this building. So you get a PM curve here, and these are your analysis forces. So that is how we determine that the column is strong enough. The still part of the column has RCC members going out from it. So we use couplers and so on to connect the transition from the composite structure to the RCC structure. These are couplers. You can't see there is an I section here. On the flange, we weld the couplers and we take the reinforcement from it. For the erection part, this is probably some of you might have seen this also earlier, but anyway. We have this floor plate, and we have a what we call an assembly area where a temporary truss was, a toll truss was erected, and then on that we assemble the pod. That is the part of this one. This pod weighs around 250 tons. One pod weight, actually it's heavier than a Boeing 747 actually. So, and this column grid is 64 meter, and that is 34 meters. So what was done was we put temporary trusses called skyway trusses, and we roll these pods from the assembly area to the column locations. And this temporary truss itself is another this one gigantic structure. It spans 34 meters and 64 meters, on which a rolling moving load of 250 tons was this one. I can't see here, but anyway, I think this is how it looks like. And this is your skyway temporary truss. This is a bogie. It contains on top of this red colored truss. There are tracks, and you have this bogie wherein in the bogie you have wheels, and we use this kind of hydraulic jacks, one set on the front and one set on the back, pulling and pushing at the same time, and this will clamp. It will retract, and then after it is pulled, it will extend again and clamp onto the next point, and then pull like that. So this is how it was rolled into place. So some photos of the steel structure while it was being constructed. This is the cladding going up in the column. This is concrete again. This is glass fiber reinforced concrete. This was made in Canada because we couldn't get the kind of quality we required in India. And this is the ceiling going up, and this is the perimeter bull nose going up. Again, that is concrete. This is a view of the completed thing.